So like I said, today's date is February 19th, 2025. February 19th, and today is Wednesday. We are looking at the nature and essence of contract, which is lesson 1, introductory aspect of contract. And remember, the topic is the nature and essence of contract. The nature and essence of contract. And then we have seen that nature in the sense that contract comes in different forms, and contract is everywhere. Wherever we are, we can see contract. In our social settings, in our working areas or work areas or workplaces or whatsoever, we could see contract there. If you're a landlord or landlady, if you're rent or out your space for rent, you embark on what is called a contract. If you're a gentleman and you're interested in a lady, you propose, the lady say, okay, I accept. That one also is a contract. You are entering into a contract. So contract is everywhere. If you're a business person, a businessman or a business person, the customers you'll be dealing with, sometimes you provide them the materials and then they pay it in installment. That one alone is a contract. Or you too, you are a business person, and then suppliers also give you the resources or the materials or the input or the factors of production, and then you take them and you pay them on installment. That one also, there's a contract. You create a contract and then you embark on that. Are you getting it? You are employee. Someone has employed you. There's an employer-employee relationship. That one also is a contract. A contract. A contract. Whether it is a contract for employment or a contract of employment or contract for service or a contract of service, all of them, it counts there. So contract is everywhere. Contract is everywhere. Contract is everywhere. So the nature and the essence of contract, the essence of contract. We need to understand contract very well so that wherever we find ourselves to be, we will be able to draft appropriate contract, and then avoid any unnecessary legal actions that may arise in after the very important the lesson. You should be able to explain the term agreement, and you should be able to assess the various definitions given on agreement. Why are we beginning with an agreement? Why are we beginning with an agreement? The reason being that you can by no means understand contract without understanding the term agreement. Because after all, the definition of a contract is an agreement, if nothing at all. We know that it is an agreement. It is an agreement. Once it is an agreement, then we know that contract is emerging from agreement. It is emerging from agreement. Therefore, it is so prudent for us to understand what an agreement stands to purport when it comes to law, so that when we say a contract is an agreement, it is an agreement. In fact, we will appreciate why we use the word agreement. Now the question becomes, have you ever entered into agreement before? This is an undeniable fact. Almost all of us have one way or the other entered into agreement before. Because as a husband, you remember, you could recall that one day when you were giving money to your wife, yes, you made it very, you made it very clear to your wife that I've been giving you money. But remember, this money there is different from the normal ones I give you. So this one, you're going to give it back to me. And then your wife said, okay, I hear. So that one alone, even in your marriage, there was an agreement. As a wife, sometimes when you're giving money to your husband, sometimes you say, daddy, please, this one, you give it to me. Oh, Then your husband says yes before you give the money to your husband. That is agreement. So agreement happens, or it occurs everywhere. In any aspect of our lives, agreement is there. Even the number of children you're going to give birth to, agreement is there. Agreement. So agreement, directly or indirectly, almost all of us have entered into agreement before. But the question becomes, what was the scope? What was the size? What was the form? And what was the content of the agreement? That is the big question. Because at the moment you begin to ask the question of the size, the scope, the form, and the content of the agreement, then, you see that 90% of the people start moving back, because they say, what does it mean to say the size of the agreement? What does it mean to say the scope of the agreement? What does it mean to say the form of the agreement? And what does it mean at all to say the content of the agreement or content of an agreement? These keywords are very important. Now, for us to understand contract, like I said, let us understand an agreement. Remember what I have already said, that contract law is relevant to most of the major relationships. Don't forget, the topic is the nature and the essence of contract. So the essence, what is the essence of contract or contract law? What is the essence? Contract law is relevant to most of the major relationships which individuals, these major relationships are employment. Under employment, we have employer-employee relationship. Someone has taken you, someone has employed you. The person is saying that working hours, you're not supposed to use phones from 12 noon down to 1:30 p.m. or from 12 noon to 2 p.m. It is break time. You're not supposed to sleep at work. When you come, you're not supposed to be talking. You're not supposed to fight. You're supposed to work. You're supposed to do this. You're supposed to do that. That is the content of your agreement, the terms of your agreement. That is what the person has agreed with you. So in employment, there's an agreement. When it comes to housing, whether by purchase or by renting, whether you are purchasing it, whether you are buying it or you are renting it, there is an agreement. There is an agreement. Tenancy agreement is there. There's an agreement, or there's a contract. There's a contract. And then when it comes to consumers, when it comes to suppliers, agreement is there. The consumers, people who are patronizing your product, they can buy it on credit and then they pay them on installment. Agreement is there. When you talk about suppliers, the people who are supplying the factors of production, they can give it to you on credit and then you pay them on installment, or you pay them bit by bit. That one too, agreement also, or contract can come there. So contract law is also of great importance. The essence. Contract law is also of great importance to corporate organizations, since most companies conduct their business transactions through contracts with customers, suppliers, and employees. There can be a company without a contract. There can be a company without a contract. The company will pick employees. The company will pick the owners of the company will also have some kind of contract with the other members or other stakeholders. It happens everywhere. The company will be dealing in materials. Those materials, definitely, contract will happen there. So it means that directly or indirectly, contract is of great essence. However, contract differs widely in size, content, form, and duration. Now, the basic principle of contract that you should know right from today, is voluntary agreement by the parties. Voluntary agreement by the parties. That's the basic principle of contract. No one is supposed to enter into contract by duress or by an undue influence. The person is supposed to enter into, each and everyone is supposed to enter into contract by his or her own volition. You shouldn't deceive the person. You shouldn't put pressure on the person. You shouldn't threaten the person. You shouldn't force the arms of the person to enter into contract with you. It is the basic principle of contract. Voluntary agreement that has been entered into by the parties. Then the next one becomes the basic principle becomes determining whether or not an agreement is legally enforceable and the consequence for their breach, if there is one. The next one becomes whether or not the agreement, which is voluntarily entered into, whether it is enforceable or it is not enforceable before the law court. These are the basic principles of contract. A contract must be entered into out of the parties' own volition. They must enter into it voluntarily. And the next one becomes after they have entered into it voluntarily, the contract should be legally enforceable if there is a breach. Now, before we resume into it, we have seen the essence of a contract. Now, the next thing becomes, let us analyze some of the definitions of contract around here. Let us analyze some of the definitions that have been given. Then we quickly zoom into what is called agreement. So, simplicity in basic terms, in basic words, Sir Frederick Pollock said that contract is a promise or a set of promises which the law will enforce. Contract is a promise or a set of promises which the law will enforce. So, per Sir Frederick Pollock, he says that this is the most popular and exact description of a contract. So, from his definition, from Sir Frederick Pollock's definition, a contract is an exchange of promise for promise between two or more parties. So, you give me promise, I give you promise. You do me, I do you. Exchange of promise for promise. Per the definition that Sir Frederick Pollock said. That is the first phase. The first phase of the definition is that it is an exchange of promise for promise. And the second phase of an act, for performance of an act. Weed the backyard of my garden for me, and then I'll give you 10 Ghana cedis. I'll give you 10 Ghana cedis. I'll give you 10 Ghana cedis. So a exchange of a promise for a performance, or exchange of promise for promise. I will marry you, I will marry you. Exchange of promise for promise. I will marry you, I will marry you. So exchange of promise for promise, or a promise for a performance of an act. A promise for performance of an act between two or more parties. So that is how it is from Sir Frederick Pollock's definition of a contract. Let us look at American Laws Institute. They said that contract law is promise or a set of promises for the breach of which the law gives a remedy, or the performance of which the law in some way recognizes a duty. Please understand this, because these are the key terms that we are going to use. I didn't just bring this one into the slides just accidentally. No, I know what I am doing. I want it to resound and recount in your mind, because subsequently, when you are using these terms, you should understand them. Subsequently, when we are using these terms, you should be able to understand them. Contract law is a promise, number one. So if nothing at all, we have seen a contract law is a promise, or contract is a promise, or a set of promises, Very good. For the breach, that means we have seen a promise, we have seen a breach. For the breach of which the law gives a remedy, we have seen another word, a remedy, or the performance, we have seen another word, performance, of which the law in some way recognizes a duty. So from the definition, we could see some basic element, which is promise, legal duty, and remedy. A promise, legal duty, and a remedy. Please listen to me carefully. My dear, please, can you go and fetch water for me, and I will give you my car? Can you go and fetch water for me, and I will give you my car? Yes, please. I'll go and fetch the water for you. So, at the moment I accept to fetch the water for you, you gave me a promise, and I have also accepted the promise. When I accept the promise that you gave me, then automatically we have created what is called a legal duty. There is a legal duty on you. You told me, go and fetch water for me. Go, can you fetch water for me? And I said, yes. And then I went to fetch water for you. So you gave me a promise that go and fetch water for me, and I'll give you my car. And then I have gone to fetch water for you. So it means that the promise you gave me, I've taken up the promise. The next one becomes, there is a legal duty on you for you also to give me the car, because there's a promise for promise. That promise for promise is what is creating what is called a legal obligation or a legal duty. So anytime there's an exchange of promise for promise, there is what is called a creation of legal obligation or a legal duty. And then if there is a creation of a legal obligation or a legal duty, then the issue becomes one of the maxims of equity. One of the maxims of equity says that equity will not suffer a wrong to be without a remedy. Just ignore it. Now you don't know, so just ignore it. Don't mind me. We are saying that equity will not suffer a wrong to be without a remedy. It means that no one will suffer from someone's misconduct without the law protecting the person who is suffering. I hope you are getting it. No one will suffer from someone's misconduct without the law protecting the person who is suffering. The law will just fold its arms and say that innocent party just suffer because of someone's misconduct. The law will not sit down idle and watch innocent person to suffer. That is what we say it in law. Equity will not suffer a wrong to be without a remedy. Equity will not suffer a wrong to be without a remedy. A remedy is like a solution, an answer, something we are doing to curb the situation. So now you have given me a promise. I've taken up the promise. There's a legal obligation or a legal duty on you. And then now you have gone against your word. Am I the one who told you to promise me? You have let me done my part. I've performed my part. You don't want to perform your part. No, please give me what you said. If you are not going to give me, it's a breach of contract. Once it is a breach of contract, then I am going for a remedy. The remedy is going to court for the court to compensate me, or for the court to give me a judgment in favor. That is a remedy. So remember that there's a exchange of promise for promise, which leads to the creation of a contract. That creation of the contract or the agreement brings what is called a legal duty or a legal obligation on the parties. If any of the parties go against this promise that they have entered into or the agreement that they have entered into, then automatically one of them can go for a redress or can go for a remedy. Understand it. Please don't go and tell my pastor. I'm a pastor for learning sake and for teaching sake. Please don't go and tell my pastor. That's just, by the way, just a funny talk. You see, this topic, in fact, this course specifically, there is one particular song that I will make sure to be referencing a lot. The song is those who are grown up here. You know the song I'm talking about. The song I'm talking about. Okay, baby, I mean you. I hope you have heard that song. When you listen to that song very well, it is a contract law song. It's a contract law song. You see, the husband, there was when listening to the narration in the song, it looks like the husband, there was a conflict between the husband and the wife, and then the husband, possibly and probably the wife, left the house and went back to her own house, and then the husband has gone to the family of the wife to apologize and then to bring the wife back home, and then possibly and probably the wife has charged the husband that if I'm coming back, then you need to impart me. You have to give me a token of apology. And then the husband said, fine, just that for you to come back to our matrimonial home, then I will give you a token. And the husband has given the woman a token. Now, you, the woman, you have taken the token. Let us go back. You have come back. And then when we came to the room, open the tent for me to enter. For the King of Glory is entering the Holy of the Holies. And open the gate. You don't want to open the gate. You have put padlock there. You have put what else? What are some of the things that we can use to tighten door? You have put all those materials there. In fact, nails, chisels. You have used all of them to tighten the door. You don't want me to enter. The husband doesn't want to. The husband wants to enter. The wife doesn't want the husband to enter. Are you getting it? And then you see that's the narration of the song. So he said, "Although you are said here, my love, do what you are responsible to do. My love, do what you are responsible to do. If you say anything, I'm not going to listen to it. Do what you are supposed to do." Those of you who do not understand Chi, that is the direct translation. So that song is going to be very important I'm telling you, in the law of contract that we are going to do, because the husband came to apologize to the wife accepted the apology and has even taken a token of apology. Now you have come home, open the thing for the husband to enter. You are still wearing trousers, you are still wearing jeans. You don't want to open up the thing. I hope you are getting it. Meanwhile, you have taken the apology and the token of apology and everything. You have come back home, you are sleeping on the same bed with the husband, and now you don't want to open up the thing. That is agreement or contract song, because when anytime there's a promise, when anytime there's an exchange of promise, it creates what's called a legal duty or a legal obligation, of which when you go against it, there must be a remedy. Remember, we have spoken about promise, we have spoken about legal duty, and then we have also spoken about a remedy. What therefore is a promise? A promise is a commitment to do or not to do something in the future. Yes, because when you promise, you either promise to stop or to do something. So a promise is a commitment to either do something or to stop doing something in the future. It is either to do it or not to do it. It is a manifestation of intention to act or to refrain from acting in a specified way. You declare your intention to act, to do something, or not to do something. Remember, when the words we use under criminal law, we can't bring them here. Like I'm trying to say that this is not criminal law, but I'm just linking it. Transfer of ideas, or transfer of knowledge. Acting is commission, and not acting is omission. Acting is commission, and not acting is omission. Those of you who joined yesterday's class, now you see that we are using the law terms. Acting is commission, not acting is omission. I hope you are getting it. So it is a manifestation of intention to act. So when you promise someone, when you're promising someone, you are promising with an intention to do something for the person, or with an intention of not doing the thing for the person, right? And we are saying that it could be stated in words, either oral or written, or it may be inferred wholly or partly from conduct. In fact, it creates a contractual obligation. So a contractual obligation is created right after an exchange of a promise for a promise or a promise for a performance. That is what creates what is called a contractual obligation. A contractual obligation. It could be in writing, it could be orally. The form. You see, we said a contract varies in size, it varies in form, it varies in content. So the form could either be oral, it could be written or partially written and partially oral, or it could be fully written, or it could be hey, I have proposed to you. Rebecca, I've proposed to you. Rebecca, I like you. Brakwesi likes Rebecca. And brother Kwesi has proposed to Rebecca. Rebecca has not accepted the proposal of Brakwesi. But every morning, Rebecca will come. Brakwesi, please. Can you give me 10 Ghana cedis? Then Brakwesi gives Rebecca 10 Ghana cedis. And anytime Rebecca is sick, Rebecca will call Brakwesi, even somewhere 9 p.m. Brakwesi, please, I'm sick. Can you come and pick me to hospital? Then Brakwesi go quickly rushes to the room of Rebecca, go and pick Rebecca and send Rebecca to hospital. Every Sunday or every Saturday, Rebecca comes to the house of Brakwesi and come and wash for Brakwesi. Brakwesi, please, can I come and wash for you? Then Brakwesi says yes. Meanwhile, Rebecca has not accepted the proposal of Brakwesi with mouth. What do you think Rebecca is doing? Impliedly, Rebecca has accepted the proposal of Brakwesi. Yes, Rebecca has accepted the proposal of Brakwesi, so it could be inferred wholly or partly from the party's conduct. Understand that. And at the moment that promises or those promises are being exchanged, then it creates what is called legal duty. And what therefore is a legal duty? A legal duty is an obligation that is imposed by law. It is an obligation. Legal duty is an obligation. It is an obligation. It is something you're supposed to do. In accounting field, we will say that it creates a liability. It is an obligation. It is an obligation that is supposed to be that is supposed to be settled. So a legal duty is an obligation that is imposed by law and arises out of a relationship recognized by law. So in contract, it arises when a party makes a promise that is legally binding on them. No one told you as a wife, your husband apologized. No one told you to accept. Now you have accepted. You have taken a token of apology and you have come to the matrimonial house or matrimonial room, even on the matrimonial bed with your husband, and now open the tin for the King of Glory to enter the temple. You don't want to open up the tin. And you don't want to open up the tin. Once you have, the husband has apologized and you too, you have accepted and you have taken the token of apology, then there is a legal duty. There is a legal obligation. There is an obligation on you. Open up the tin. I'm just trying to bring it in our social setting for you to understand it. So that is how it is. Anytime there is exchange of promise for promise or exchange of promise for a performance, it creates what is called legal duty or legal obligation or contractual obligation or contractual duty. The next thing becomes, well, once you are a human being, sometimes some people in Akan, they say maka and some way, ekurase maka and some way. And the mouth says, I have bitten it, but I have not chewed it, I have not swallowed it. In law of contract, when you bite, chew. When you bite, chew. Don't bite more than your mouth. Bite what your mouth can chew. Because when you bite, don't go and say that I wanted to. I quite remember one roommate that I had. He will go and then put in all his effort and propose to a lady. He will work on the lady's mind for almost 3 months or 4 months. And then after the lady is developing an interest in him, sometimes he proposes. And then the lady, you know, my ladies, they will say, I'm going to think about it. Though they like him, they will go and think about it. And later on, when they come and then they are coming to say yes, then my roommate will say, oh, I was lying. Okay. I was just playing. I said, what do you mean by that? No, if you bite, you chew. If you propose, yes, we will move on. Whether I like it or we will move on. That's how contract is. You can't joke with people's heart. You can't be giving people broken hearts just like that. That is law of contract. Law of contract. When there is a legal obligation, which is arising from exchange of promise for promise. I hope you are getting the terms I'm using. When there is a legal obligation or a contractual obligation, when there is a legal obligation or contractual obligation, right? So like I said, we should be able to understand all the terminologies. We should be able to understand, because we are saying that it creates legal obligation. How does this legal obligation come about, or how is it created? It is being created from exchange of promise for promise. And then when you joke with people's heart by saying that, well, I said this, but I'm no longer interested in that, then it means you're breaching the contract. You are breaching the contract. And then at the moment you breach a contract, then the party, the aggrieved party, the aggrieved party, the party who is not happy with what you have done, that's what I mean, can take up the issue and send it to court for a remedy. Remember, under criminal law, what the main or the sole aim is to punish. But under civil law, right? Under civil law, such as law of contract is purely based on common law. And remember, we understood yesterday under criminal law that criminal law doesn't take into consideration what is called common law. I hope you are getting Article 19, Clause 21 will let us understand that. And even in the case of I think Chachuchu Kata versus the Republic, it was being stated there, right? But when we come to contract, we are talking about common law. Are you getting it? So, or civil law. Because it is civil law, our interest is not necessarily in punishing the person, but our interest is basically in compensation, giving out compensation. So that is how it is. So when the person goes or breaches the contractual obligation or goes against the contractual obligation or the agreement that has been created, then a remedy could be given to the person. So remedy means talks about compensation. So it is a means by which a right is enforced or violation of rights is prevented, redressed, or compensated. So if you want to compensate someone, we use remedy as a tool. The law gives a remedy or compensation for the breach of promise or set of promises. So the remedy can be in the form of damages, specific performance, injunctions. These are some of the common law remedies, specific performance, damages, injunctions, all of them are termed as remedies. Now, what is the focus of the court? Court focus on contract issues. When it comes to contract issues, what is the focus of the court? What exactly is the promise or promises that have been made by the parties? The court asks that. So when a case before the judges or the learned judges, they ask certain questions. What exactly was the promise that you made? What did you want to do? What did you intend to do? So what exactly is the promise? That's the terms and the scope of the agreement. What are the terms, the things you promise yourself about? And to what extent did you decide to do it up to? Are you getting it? So what are the terms? What are the scope that is of the promise? The court will find out to get to know. After the court has been able to understand that, then the court has to establish the next principle. The next principle is that the promises you give to yourself, does it constitute a legal duty or does it create a legal obligation? Does it create a contractual obligation? Is there any legal duty as a result of the promise? The court will find out. The court will find out. So as a lawyer or as a counsel, when you're even solving questions, you should be able to know this. Was there any promise? Was there any offer or these things? You have to check them. And then did it create an enforceable legal obligation or a legal duty or a contractual obligation? Did it create something like that? It is answered from the essentials of the formation of contract, such as offer, acceptance. So if you want to know whether there's a legal duty or there's a contractual obligation, then you have to make reference to the essentials of contract or the essentials to the formation of a contract, such as the offer, acceptance, intention to create legal relation, consideration, capacity. You have to talk about all those items. After these two, after the court has been able to establish these two facts, how will an aggrieved party be compensated for the breach of the contract by the other party? Then the judges, the learned judges, will ask themselves if there was a promise for promise which created an enforceable legal duty or contractual obligation, and then one of them has breached or has gone against what was agreed. Then how will the aggrieved party, the party who has suffered, how would that party be compensated? That one becomes the question of the court. How would that party be compensated? Now let us look at contractual obligations. I think we have been speaking about it, which is legal duty or legal obligation. We are saying that contractual obligation is a legal responsibility that arises from contract between two parties. It is a legal responsibility. Contractual obligation, contractual obligation. It is a legal responsibility that has been created as a result of exchange of promise for promise. It is a legal duty, right? That is, they are the duties and promises that the parties agree to carry out under the terms of the contract. What you decided to do under the contract, under the terms of the contract, you do it up to here and up to here, and me too, I'll do it up to here and up to here. Those are what term as contractual obligations. They are the terms of the contract. You have decided to embark on them. You have decided to do them voluntarily, out of your own volition. No one is forcing you. No one put pressure on you. No one threatened you. You just decided to do it. Hence, binding contracts are the ones that were voluntarily entered into. They are not imposed by the law, but are voluntarily undertaken by the contracting parties themselves. No one will force you. You do that one out of your own volition. So contractual obligations are legally binding, meaning that if one party fails to fulfill their end of the deal, the other party can take legal action. That legal action is what is called a remedy. a remedy. So far, what have we learned? So far, what have we learned? So far, we have analyzed the definition of Sir Frederick Pollock. And then from there, we came to the American Institute. And then we have understood the key elements. If we want to study law of contract, some of the basic elements or some of the basic key terms that we are supposed to understand. It is not the element of contract, please. They are the basic key terms that are supposed to be understood based on the definition that Sir Frederick Pollock gave and the American Institute also gave. It is a promise, and then a promise which creates a legal duty or a contractual obligation or legal obligation. And then by the breach of it thereof will call for a remedy, a remedy, a remedy, a remedy, a remedy. That is the meaning of the plenty talk we have done. When a case goes to the court will check and see, was there any valid promise created, exchange of promise for promise, or exchange of promise for a performance? If the answer is yes, the next thing becomes, well, did it create an enforceable agreement or contract? If the answer is yes, then who went against his or her part? There must be a remedy. Equity will never suffer a wrong to be without a remedy. It is one maxim of equity. Equity will not suffer a wrong to be without a remedy. All right. Now, having understood all these terminologies, now let us analyze agreement versus contract. But remember, the agreement is the one in the red because that is what we are beginning with today, or that is what we are adding up today, right? So agreement, we can define contract without agreement. Anytime we define contract, agreement says, here I am. What therefore is an agreement? Agreement is an understanding or arrangement reached between two or more parties that is either enforceable by law or not. But before we continue, let me stand here and take up any question that each one of us might, one way or the other, bring on board. So I'm taking your questions. So after we, after discussing all those questions, let's move on. Agreement. Agreement is any understanding or arrangement reached between two or more parties that is either enforceable by law or not. So we have to know that for agreement, it will either be enforceable or not. And then it is any understanding that or arrangement that has been reached between two parties. So you and I, we have reached some kind of consensus we have been able to reach some kind of consensus or agreement, or let me say understanding. Someone has sent me a message. I've seen it. So I'll come back for you again. So that is how it is. And then we are saying that agreement can be formed orally or in writing. Agreement could either be oral, it could also be in writing. It can also be legally binding or non-binding, depending on the intention of the parties involved. So it could either be binding, it could also not be binding. Agreement could be binding or not binding. You are in the house with your own child, and you tell your child to go to school. Petit versus petit, marriage versus marriage, Jones versus Padavanten versus Jones, and the law of contract, intention to create legal relation. When we reach there, you understand it. You are in the house with your son or your child. You tell the child to go to school. The child is not going to school. Then you promise the child that go to school, and now when I'll buy you land, and then your child went to school. After everything, your child is coming to see that the land that you told me to go to school and you buy for me, I'm ready for the land. Give me the land. And then you tell your child that, please, I just wanted you to go to school. I didn't plan of entering into contract with you. Does that one create contract, or it creates what? I hope you are getting it. So we are saying that agreement can either be binding or non-binding. Could either be binding or non-binding, depending on the intention of the parties involved. So the essential element of agreement are offer and acceptance. They are offer and acceptance, proposal and acceptance. That's all. offer and acceptance. So agreement could either be binding or non-binding. Agreement, it could either be binding or non-binding. So it is worth noting that agreement is the basis for every contract. It is worth noting. It is worth noting that agreement is the basis for every contract. There can't be a contract without agreement. Agreement is the pillar, is the basis, the foundation for every contract. And then we are saying that the court focus on agreement. The court focus, what the court look at when it comes to agreement. Every contract must have the concept of agreement, which is consensus item or meeting of minds. Every contract must have the concept of agreement. Every contract, there can be a contract without agreement. That's why we are understanding agreement. It has been held that the absence of consensus item has the effect of putting the parties at cross purpose. Anytime the parties are at cross purpose means that their minds are not meeting. This one thinks that this party A thinks that he's selling his Corolla, and then party B also thinks that he's buying the Camry, and this one thinks that he's selling the Corolla. There's a cross purpose, there's a cross mind. The minds are not meeting, and then we are saying that if the court cannot find any evidence of actual agreement on the part of both parties, it may be obligated or forced to hold that there is no contract. If the court find out that the parties, they have cross purpose, their minds are not meeting, then the court will enter into a judgment that there wasn't anything called contract or there wasn't anything called agreement, because the two of them, all of them are misled. One was thinking that it is this, and the other one was also thinking that it is this. Now, if the court looks at the mind of the parties, if the court looks at the mind of the parties, whether their minds are meeting or their minds are not meeting, whether there is a cross purpose or there is no cross purpose, then my question becomes, how could the court know the mental state of the parties? Are they magicians? The judges, are they God? How are they going to know the mental state of the parties to get to know that the parties actually wanted to involve themselves in a contract or in agreement? Whether they said that they said that with all seriousness or without any kind of seriousness. How are we going to know? Are the judges magicians? We are saying that, well, the judges are not magicians, but they are going to use what is called test of agreement. Test of agreement? Yes, you heard me right. I said test of agreement. Is it blue litmus paper or red litmus paper? You heard me right. It is test of agreement. So the court is going to use something which is called test of agreement, or something that they're going to use to test whether there is a solid agreement, a binding agreement or non-binding agreement between the parties, whether there is a cross purpose or there's a consensus item between the parties. The court is going to do that. So the big question is, how could the court know the mental state of the parties? I think someone has requested for it. That's why I've gone back. So how could the court know the mental state of the parties? That's the big question. And then we are saying that the court is going to the test of agreement. They're going to the test of agreement. And what therefore is this? How possible could this be? And what instrument is that? I'm asking a question. What therefore is this? What therefore is a test of agreement? How possible? How could it be? And what instrument is that? What instrument are we going to use to test an agreement? What instrument is that? Okay, we shall see from today, a little bit from today, and God willing, tomorrow, our next discussion. So we are saying that the test of agreement, to determine the presence of agreement, the court places specific emphasis on external appearance, rather than the actual intent or state of mind of the parties. The external appearance. I think I've said this one before. Bra Kwesi has proposed to Rebecca. Rebecca, you have not yet accepted the proposal, but Rebecca, he said, Bra Kwesi, can I come and wash for you? Bra Kwesi, even when you are falling down, he said, hey, Bra Kwesi, in your dreams, you have started dreaming about Bra Kwesi. So it means that you have accepted Bra Kwesi. Breakfast is there. You say, breakfast, can I come and watch TV in your room? Breakfast, please, I'm hungry. Breakfast, can I come and cook in your room? Breakfast, do you have gas? My gas is finished. Can I come and cook in your room? And last time we went to breakfast's place and it rained. And when it rained, it rained. And after it rained, it rained. And it rained. And now you are saying that you didn't accept the proposal of breakfast. By external appearance, you have accepted it already. You have accepted it already. So we are saying that though you, the woman, your mind, possibly and probably you might be thinking that, well, even if you accept it, you are trying to let it be next year, because you're putting one or two things in order. So that is your mind. For your mind, you have not yet accepted it. But by your external appearance, you have accepted it. So we are saying that the court places specific emphasis on external appearance. External appearance is more or less like what a reasonable bystander, a reasonable person, anyone who is reasonable, any person in his or her right mind or state, any reasonable person, anyone, I mean any third party. If any third party looks at you, or if any third party listening to the case, what will be the conclusion of the third party? The third party will say, hey, Rebecca, but you have already accepted. Said, no, me in my mind, I have not accepted him. I'm planning of accepting him probably next year. But the person will say, hey, but what you have been doing signifies that you have accepted him. So that anytime you see that, it means that we are placing emphasis on external appearance more than the actual intent or state of mind of the parties. So we are saying that that is what the court looks at. The court looks at appearance, what you have done. You have conducted or carried yourself in such a way for people to believe that you are the boss of the company. You are the boss of the company. Meanwhile, you are not the boss of the company. When you read the Company Act 992, 20, I think it's 2019 at 992. When you reach it, people who carry themselves to be in a certain way for people to believe that they are directors of the company. When something happens, they will never be exculpated for them to just go and say that, hey, but we were not. Oh, no. You carried yourself to be like a director. So when something happens, we will handle you like a director. Are you getting it? So external appearance, we place much emphasis on it. The court operates on the basic principle that agreement is not a mental state, but an act. Agreement is not a mental state. Can we enter into your mind? But remember what Bible says. What Bible says. Faith without work is dead. So once you are adding work to faith, then you should come back to what we are discussing here. You should come back to what we are discussing. Faith without work is dead. So it means that mental state without act is dead. So your mental state, put it aside. Your act. Action speaks louder than words. Action, your act. So your mind, no one can enter there. But we know that the book of Mark chapter 7, verse 21 also, he said the heart, for what is full in the heart is what comes outward. What is full in your heart, what your heart is filled of, is what comes out. So it means that when we look at your act, it means that the same thing that is in your mind, even though that might not be the truth. That might not be the case, but that is how the court will make the judgment. Hence, they will try to infer from your conduct. They will try to infer. So then, to ascertain agreement, the parties are to be judged not by what they had in mind, but by what can be objectively inferred from what they have said, written, done, or their external appearance. So objectively inferred, which is by the usage of objective test. Objectively inferred. Objectively inferred. So objective test. Objectively inferred. So objective test. What does the objective test mean? What does this objective test mean? So the test of agreement, number one, by the usage of objective test. By the usage of objective test. By the usage of objective test. That is the test of agreement. What does this objective test mean? How is this test applied by the court? What about if there are ambiguities? Could you support all this with case laws? That is what we are going to discuss in our next lesson. My name is Sir Possible, and I've been your tutor up to now. I must recommend, how should I say this? I must commend you for your attention, for your comportment, for your seriousness. So next lecture, we are going to look at objective test, application of objective test, and then where there is no ambiguity. Then we look at case laws to support all this. So once again, like I said, my name is Possible. Let me take your questions and then we look at the way forward. All right. So your questions are welcomed. I am unmuting you so you can unmute yourself. Raise up your hand and then I give you the access for you to talk. Thank you.